Jace, you should see me as a small screen right now. Good morning, everyone. Am I good?
Yep.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Like that coffee mug there, Gregory. So I guess we'll get started here. I think we'll probably have a lot of people coming in. It's 8 o'clock sharp Pacific Standard Time. Kind of feel like Jim Carrey and what was it, The Truman Show. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. As many of you know, big operation for us is in India, which is 12 and a half hours ahead of Los Angeles. So it's whatever, 8:30 at night there. We've got obviously a lot of people who are shareholders. We have a huge Danish contingent of shareholders. I see Niels on here, so welcome Niels and all the people that are coming in from Denmark. Obviously a big contingent of people from Canada, Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, etc., and of course our followers and fans here in the US, including Los Angeles. So welcome to everybody this morning. Super excited to share things with everyone. I will make the statement at the outset that, as you all know, we're a public company. I'd like to get into more specific details about certain things that I can't do. So I'll try to give you as much information as I possibly can about where we're headed as a business, how we got to where we are today, and why we think this huge revenue boost that we announced this morning of $4.7 million of guidance, up from 3.1 to 3.8 that we were originally anticipating, is happening, and what's going to continue to drive that kind of growth on a go-forward basis. So that's what this morning is all about, and we'll dive into the presentation here. There's going to be a technology test for all of you in the middle of the presentation. What we're going to do is I'm going to show a video, and that means that Jace, who many of you know is here with me, he'll put a link up into the chat area of the Zoom when we get to that slide. And I'm actually going to have everybody play it from the chat locally. I think it'll be a lot more successful. We've tested it on Zoom, and frankly, the video playback sucks, so I don't want it to do that. So that'll be in the middle of the presentation. But with that, let me share my screen here, and let's take it away. Okay. How are we looking, Jace? Good? Okay. As I said, today's a big day for us. I mean, 2021 has been an incredible year. Everybody's been, frankly, working their asses off, and the company just keeps growing. Every aspect of the company is growing. And I've only got one slide. These, of course, forward-looking statements with all the disclaimers. We don't need to go through that. I've only got one slide this morning that really addresses our overall business. The reason for that is I'm going to kind of make the assumption that most of you who are on the call are already familiar with what we're doing in a general or even very specific way, have been on these things before and kind of know what we're doing. So I'm not going to get into what I would do. This is not a typical investor presentation. And by the way, we are recording this, so this will be posted up on the website and available for people to see. But I think that the important thing for everyone to sort of look at, and why we're so excited about the future for the company, and why we think, frankly, we're undervalued right now in terms of where we're positioned, are the macro trends that are driving our business. The first one is social video on the left there. What is social video? Social video is what YouTube kind of really launched, in 2005 or 6, and is now commonplace, where people are both interacting and commenting and creating communities and sharing the content and creating their own content that's going up onto these platforms. It's completely different video format, and for anybody 30 years of age or younger, I talk about this all the time. It's their format of choice. When we started this company, Instagram, was just really starting to take off. TikTok didn't even exist. It started as a company. We're next to a fire station. Sorry about that. Where TikTok, was sort of in the form here of a thing called Musical.ly that was just beginning to gain traction. I think it was about 2016. Snapchat was just coming out and starting to grow. Now all of these content companies that are all worth hundreds of billions of dollars, not billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars, are driving a new form of video content that is undeniable in terms of its power, both in terms of the way people are publishing to it and the way people are consuming it. That content forms the foundation of everything we do as a business. Everything we do connects ultimately into social media, social video, and social content. And so we view that as a trend that's going to continue to grow massively. It's all over the world. And India represents a place that's massive, which I'll talk about in a second here. On the far right, the other side is what we call, and what's becoming known more and more as the creator economy. What is the creator economy? That's the business, that's the transactional business that's being driven by social video and all that content. So any of you who are familiar with Instagram or even TikTok now, big thing that they talked about at a conference that they ran earlier this week was about the transactional elements that are happening on the platform. And these social video content creators are becoming direct sellers of content to people, okay? It's no longer just a conduit to go and do a funny dance or juggle or do some crazy thing. It's now becoming a transactional gateway. There's a developing business around this that we'll talk about a little bit later called social commerce. To give you a sense, this is brand new news out this morning. I had no idea this was coming. Meesho, M-E-E-S-H-O, Meesho, which is one of the leaders in social commerce in India, just this morning raised 570 million US dollars at a $4.9 billion valuation. Okay, 6 months ago, they raised $300 million at a $2 billion valuation. That's how fast social commerce is growing in India, and we believe we are incredibly well and incredibly uniquely positioned to take advantage of that on a go-forward basis. This is a new category that's just starting, and we expect to be a player there. The final thing is what's in the middle of that, India. You know, I get asked all the time, how'd you guys end up in India? How'd you get there, et cetera? I've told that story about how we started and ultimately went too far and wide and ultimately said, okay, India is the place where we want to be. What's the number one driver of that? India not only has close to 1.4 billion people now, but it has 650 million people. Almost half the population is 25 years of age or younger. That's massive and that's significant. That's twice the size of the United States, is 25 years of age or younger. It's almost hard to comprehend. Well, the target for all this creator economy, all this social commerce, all this social video is a younger demographic. It's used, of course, by everybody, but that demographic is massive there. The other thing is that where does India sit in terms of social consumption and social video? WhatsApp, its largest territory in the world is India. Facebook's largest user base in the world is India. Instagram's second largest user base in the world is India, and it's soon to surpass the largest right now, which is the United States. YouTube, 10% of all YouTube videos that are watched in India. So it gives you a sense of the impact and the power of what's happening there and what the macro trends are that are driving this. You know, you see the arrows pointing to us at the bottom of this page, QYOU Media. This is the essential reason why we believe we're in the right place at the right time, we're building the right business with the right content, the right partners, and why we're so excited about what the future holds for us. So let's talk about the news that came out today. You know, it's kind of hard to believe right now that in Q1 of 2021, we reported actually 296,000, I think was the actual number, $300,000 of total revenue. It was a shit quarter for us, no doubt about it, and we hoped we were going to do better than that, but it's just indicative of what the transition is that we've made. You know, I talk a lot about how the revenue in the business kind of trails by 60 to 90 days, so whenever you're looking at these numbers, you're kind of talking about the quarter that preceded it. We had a lot of growth that really started to take off in Q1, and we started to really get our feet underneath us, and that really exploded in Q2 of this year. Again, Q2 partially represents what happened in Q1, Q3 partially in Q2, so you've got to keep that in mind. And Q3, you know, has been a great quarter for us. So the bottom line is that our revenue trajectory is beyond what we even expected. There's no other way to really frame it or to describe it. And that revenue trajectory is expected to continue. I'm not going to provide guidance. I know I get asked this all the time, and I wish that I could give you more of that, but we're not going to provide guidance yet for Q4 and revise that yet, nor are we going to provide guidance for 2022. We're working on all of that as we speak. Part of the reason for that is things are growing so fast that we're not sure exactly what to put out or where we're going to end up with things. But the bottom line is that we're exceeding expectations right now in every major business unit. And everything that we've got right now is growing. We expect that growth to continue on the same trajectory, and we're extremely excited about what the future holds in terms of the revenue growth for the company. So what are the drivers for that? Okay. First thing is that, and we'll show a slide here in a second, is that we've just kind of blown past our original goals of being a leading youth channel. We're no longer a youth channel, we're a mass market channel. We're now competing with the largest channels that are in the Indian Hindi general entertainment landscape. There's a lot of pressure that's added to that, but that's also driven a lot of what the revenue growth is, and I'll talk about that in more detail momentarily. We've added 30 new advertisers in 5 months. I mean, that's incredible. The advertisers that we had less than a year ago, none of them would have been names that anybody on this call would have recognized unless you live in India. So the advertisers that we're adding has been spectacular, and I'll go into more depth on each one of these in the ensuing slides. We've created new programming and channel branding improvements. When we get to our little test to see if you can go into your chat and watch a Vimeo link, you'll be able to watch some of that and see some of that, and I'll speak about that in a minute. The acquisition of Chatterbox, you know, we talk all the time. Our inside joke here is that it's not 1 + 1 = 3, it's 1 + 1 = 11. Well, that's not really a joke for us. We actually believe that that's true. I think the power of what you're seeing in our revenue growth and a lot of what we're talking about in terms of the future of this company is based upon the incredible team led by Pranay and Julie that are taking Chatterbox to be a next level company in India in terms of the growth that they have there. We've already spoken and released news of Bharat Box. Bharat Box, which again refers to really tier 2, tier 3 India and rural India, is where we expect to see a lot of growth for our business going forward, and I'll go into a bit more detail on that as well. And finally, sometimes they feel like the redheaded stepchild of the company is our QYOU influencer marketing business. That's growing too, and I'll give you some more details on what's happening there. So what's changed for the company? What's this meteoric sort of growth driven by? What happened? Well, as many of you that have followed us for a while know, a lot of the focus of our business was on beating these other youth channels and channels that were attracting young audiences. Bindos, which is owned by Disney, Viacom, which is owned by MTV, of course, Zoom, which is owned by Times of India, which is now a strategic investor. If you look at this in June of 2020, that's who we were chasing. And if you watch something, my more button, I was clicking, it's okay. If you read even press releases from back then, all we were talking about is how we were catching up and getting onto the heels of Bindos, MTV, and Zoom. Well, you look to where we are now in September of 2021, and those are, ridiculously in the rearview mirror for us. That's what's changed in our business, is we've actually altered from not just being a youth-oriented channel, we're becoming a mass channel. The importance of that and the power of that is undeniable. And honestly, from my perspective, it's not really reflected even today in our share price or our valuation. And so the power of being able to reach 95 to 100 million people in India through our television platform every week that happens, is an incredible driver for what's happening for our brand and for our business. And I think this graph sort of puts it in perspective for those who've been watching us about how far we've come and why we're in a completely different league now in terms of what's driving our business. I spoke a minute ago about the advertisers. I'm going to refer to one thing on this slide that I think is sort of the most significant and important. On the left-hand side there, you see Facebook and Coca-Cola, okay? What's changed for us is we were so excited about adding P&G and Unilever and Pepsi, et cetera. We were putting out press releases about that. We haven't even put out a press release about Facebook becoming an advertiser, Coca-Cola becoming an advertiser on the channel. It's not that it's a yawn. It's not about that. It's that we've now got ourselves in a place where we expect that to happen. That's what we expect our ad sales group to be bringing in, is advertisers of that level. The more important part of this page, and the thing that's really driving what is giving us a lot of excitement about the future, is that when we first started making these announcements, you know, typical deals might be for 2 weeks or 4 weeks or maybe even 2 months if it was a really good one. A lot of these advertisers now are signing on for long-term deals. I can't go into the details of which ones and who it is and how long it is, but some of these people have now signed up to advertise on the channel for 12 months. So we've got a 1-year deal booked and locked in for advertisers in terms of these names that you see on this page. So that's where things have changed. That's the kind of thing that happens when you become more of a massy channel. And this is the stuff that gives us so much enthusiasm about where the channel is headed and where the company is headed. This is also a big one. At the end of the day, you know, to some degree, it's all about the programming. Get asked about the GRP all the time. Our GRP has actually drifted down a little bit over the last month as we've been trying to get to a point where we can find what the right mix is between content and ad value. Without getting too far into the weeds of all this, brands and advertisers like to pick certain kinds of shows, certain types of audiences, etc. We, as a lot of you followed us for a long time know, we were very, very heavily leaning into animation. Well, animation is great for viewership. It drives viewership. We know that, but it actually doesn't convert as well as live action and some other shows in terms of dollars, in terms of what you get for value out of that viewership and what an advertiser is willing to pay for that. When we show you the video, which will happen after I talk about this for a minute, you'll see that 2 of the shows that we now have sponsors, have title sponsors for them. This was a goal that we were looking to reach in 2022, and we've already gotten there under the guidance of Simran Hoon and the ad sales team. So Dettol, which is a big product in India, and Lifebuoy soap, you'll see when you see these videos at the tail end of the clips, these are the title sponsors for these shows. This is a big deal for us. So a lot of what we're doing right now is we're trying new programming, we're balancing what we're doing, and we're finding what really works. Shows that we've got that have been on the channel for a while, Baklal, Daravi Kahanya, which is an animated show, have become true hits for us. These are shows that week in and week out are delivering audiences, and this is part of what's sustaining our growth and our position as a mass market channel now. With that said, we're also trying new things. Everything that we do is rooted in social media. Jhumka Chera, which is our crime show, we did we put out a press release about this. We did a audition contest in conjunction with Chingari, the TikTok-style app in India. That ran for 2 weeks. It had nearly 50,000 audition tapes that were submitted in 2 weeks, which is mind-boggling. It wasn't easy to watch all those. And we had over 1 billion views on the Chingari platform of all those audition tapes and videos. This shows you the kind of thing that we do to tie everything we do into the social video area. That was to get people to be able to be on the show. And that's how we use social video and social media and app-based content to leverage everything we do. One of the other things that you're going to see a clip of in a moment here is for a show that we're launching in October that we're super excited about, which is called Ashram. Some of you might be familiar with a huge hit on Netflix called Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai, interestingly enough, was a YouTube premium show. When YouTube was starting to make original content on YouTube, one of the series they launched was Cobra Kai, which is based on the history of the movie series Karate Kid. Well, it did okay, but YouTube stopped doing that program, and Netflix picked that up and put it onto their platform to take a YouTube premium show and put it onto Netflix. Well, Cobra Kai now, I don't know exactly if it's in the top 10, it may be in the top 5, but what I do know is it's absolutely one of the top and most popular series in the history of Netflix. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's a great series. But Cobra Kai is an example of a show coming from YouTube that went on to Netflix to become one of its most popular series. Well, we're following suit with that. Ashram is a show that comes from an OTT platform called MX Player. It was very successful on MX, but it's never been seen on television. So we looked at it and said, why don't we do with Ashram what Netflix did with Cobra Kai? So in October, we're premiering Ashram on the Q, and it will be the first television premiere. It'll be the world television premiere of that series on the TV. We have a lot of high expectations for that. As I mentioned, Dettol has come on as a title sponsor for that series. And we're going to do something else with that we haven't been able to do yet, which is we do what's called stripping it, which means it's going to play Monday through Friday. And each night you'll see the series. There's sort of a cliffhanger and it goes to the next, etc. This is all new for us. This is part of the experimentation that we constantly go through. Fingers are crossed, but we have a lot of excitement and new things that we're trying around the launch of Ashram. And finally, what we've also done is we raised up into be more of a mass market channel. We've added new branding to the channel. So we've had to upgrade all of that. We've had to, more and more each and every day improve the look and feel of it so that we look like we're as big as we are in terms of our ratings and our position. And so the video that you're about to see to do that. So hopefully this won't throw everyone off. I'm going to have, if you're unfamiliar with Zoom, you should be able to look and go into what's called your chat area. Don't start yet. Don't launch it yet. If you go into the chat area, Jace, I believe, has put, is it up there? Jace, I believe, has put the link up. So you've got a link up in the chat area, which is a Vimeo link. And I'm going to actually do this as a countdown where I'll count 3, 2, 1. You can all launch that. It lasts for 2.5 minutes. And what you're going to see is you'll first see a general trailer for the channel. You'll see a promo for the crime show. You'll see another general trailer for a Halloween promotion with our animation and horror stuff that I think you'll like. It's very quirky and offbeat and shows the Zara Hatke attitude of our brand. And then finally, you'll see a preview and promo for Ashram, the new series launching in October.
अच्छा शाम 7 से 10 क्या होगा?
बोलो बोलो
बावला हलकट पब्लिक को का मस्ती भरा खेल
बोलो
एक्शन कॉमेडी रोमांस का चटपटा ये भेद
और बोलो
जुर्म के दुनिया में होगा न्याय का होलसेल आंधी भरी खौफ से धड़कनों का मेल मौज थ्रिलर चुड़ैल किलर चोर पुलिस हीरो गुंडा जीरो दिमाग उलट गया क्या? सीधे हो जाओ और देखो प्राइम टाइम शाम 7 से 10 सिर्फ द क्यू पर।
असल जिंदगी में भले कोई मैजिक पेन ना, पर सच छुप नहीं सकता। आ रहा हूं मैं आज के जुर्म और उनके दिल दहला देने वाली कहानियां लेकर।
जुर्म का चेहरा अब क्राइम होगा बेनकाब को पावर्ड बाय लाइफ बॉय शनिवार और रविवार रात 9 बजे सिर्फ द क्यू पर। द क्यू पर अब दिखेगा
हाय
खौफ का
उस लड़की के चेहरे का रंग एकदम सफेद था।
एक नया चेहरा तैयार रहना। देखिए डरावनी कहानियां स्केरी पंपकिन आज सुबह 10:30 बजे सिर्फ द क्यू पर।
बाबा साहब जो कर रहे हैं ना वो ना कोई कर रहा है और ना कर सकता है।
मैं उपदेश नहीं संदेश देता हूँ शांति का। सौंप दो अपना सब, मोह माया मन धन तन सब।
पिछले 3 साल में 9 लड़कियों के गायब होने की रिपोर्ट है।
एक बार जो आश्रम आ गया ना तो यू टर्न तो ना आए कोई।
टीवी पर पहली बार आश्रम को पावर्ड बाय डेटॉल 11 अक्टूबर से सोमवार से शुक्रवार रात 8:30 बजे सिर्फ द क्यू पर।
I'm going to dive back in here again. Hopefully a lot of you were able to watch and see that. If not, again, we'll be posting this. Jason will be putting this up on the website later today in the investor area, so you can watch those videos over there as well. But we're super excited. I mean, obviously the programming is a driver for so much of what's happening with our revenue growth and the growth of the entire brand and company, and really, really happy with what's happening there. So I want to talk for a minute about Chatterbox. Bharat Box, Bharat actually literally means India, but it kind of denotes homeland, my country, the heartland. And it really represents, it's used a lot when you're describing what's called Tier 2 and Tier 3 India, which are smaller cities. A smaller city in India is 2 million or less, amazingly enough, and rural India. And where you'll see a lot of the growth that's happening, frankly, a lot of what's probably driven the social commerce valuation of Meesho this morning is coming out of their presence in Tier 2, Tier 3 in rural India. And so a lot of what we're doing with Chatterbox and a lot of the focus of what's driving our revenue growth and what's driving the growth of the business is coming out of Tier 2, Tier 3 and rural areas. And Bharat Box was a beginning of deepening the integration between our ad sales team on the TV side and the ad sales team on the Chatterbox side. The ultimate goal of the company, which I've spoken quite a bit about, is what we view as a 360-degree campaign that's unique for our business in India. We are the only business in India that has a broadcast television channel of size and scale and an influencer marketing company built within the same company. We believe that's a huge advantage when you go back to that opening slide about the social video, the creator economy, and the India landscape. That's why we're so bullish on what's going to happen for us on a go-forward basis. That's why we talk about Chatterbox being 1 + 1 = 11. So when you look at what Chatterbox brings us in terms of a deep, deep connection into the influencer world, a database of 300,000 influencers representing directly 40 influencers and more going forward, this is where we see a huge amount of growth possible and the driver of a lot of our revenue growth going forward in that combination of those teams. The other thing is, this has changed everywhere in the world, by the way. This is not unique to India, and it's part of what's driving our US growth in the influencer space as well, is that brands now look to influencer marketing as it's a box that they check as part of any campaign that goes out. Anyone who's promoting a product, doesn't matter whether it's a movie or a clothing line or a soft drink or makeup line or a car or whatever it might be, everyone now is turning to the platforms of influencer marketing on Instagram, on TikTok, on Snap, etc., to be able to engage with those influencers to drive their products. And that's part of why the Chatterbox acquisition is so important to us. It's a perfect connection between us and what we represent as a youth-oriented company and brand, and we expect to see a lot of growth happen as a result of this. I mentioned earlier, QUSA sometimes gets, less mentioned. A lot of that is because things are popping so fast in India, it's hard to keep up with it, and that's where obviously the rocket ship and blue sky growth, is more obvious. But the QUSA influencer business is growing too. We hit a major dip over COVID because it was so reliant on theatrical motion pictures. And so I've talked about this in the past. It's been a real struggle for us when that happened to be able to get new customers, new clients, etc. Well, all that hard work over the last 6 months is really starting to form and materialize. We've added new clients in the gaming space. We just did a massive campaign for Resident Evil, which was hugely successful, and we expect to do more gaming work going forward. We're in the middle right now of a huge campaign for Netflix for the show My Little Pony, which is, of course, a nostalgia property and that resonates both with moms and kids in terms of these online platforms. The one thing about the QUSA influencer business is not only is it growing, and we're adding headcount to support that growth, but it's also in a space that has macro themes behind it that are going. I'm sure all of you have seen now that on these platforms like TikTok, Instagram, et cetera, that there's that direct selling and direct marketing that I'm talking about in the social commerce arena. We're sitting in the middle of that as well in the QUSA influencer business, and the best practices and things that we're doing in that business are being shared and working with the influencer business in India. So there's a lot of synergy between these two, and we're super excited about the growth there as well. Okay, part two, what's happening going forward? You know, I get asked this again all the time, and I want to try to be as forthright as I can be. And I also, you know, can't give you specific details on a lot of this. The bottom line is we have 3 businesses that are working right now. The biggest mistake we could make is doing something crazy and looking towards the future and ignoring the growth that's happening in each one of those. This has only been happening, everybody has to realize, for less than a year now, that we've seen this kind of real growth happening in the business. So we are unbelievably diligent and focused about making sure that every day we are driving the core 3 business units for continued growth, and not just small growth, but major growth. So we break it down to the Q India channels. Everything that I've been talking about on the programming, the marketing, the distribution, all of this is key to growing the revenue. On the far right there, people are asking about the marketing, the branding, what's happening. That's the Times of India, which is the largest English language newspaper in India. And that's not something that Jay's pasted on. That's the actual front page of the newspaper promoting our crime show, Junka Chera. And the thing that some of you may or may not realize is Times of India is owned by TOI, which is parent company of Brand Capital that just invested in us, okay? So it's not by coincidence that that happened. It's part of what we talked about the huge strategic value in building our brand and what's happened. Most of you know we only closed that deal a little more than a month ago. So this stuff is just starting. We're just starting to drive marketing into that. But you'll see a lot that's happening, leveraging that around the marketing campaigns for Ashram in October. You'll see we just hired a head of marketing for the company less than 2 months ago. So there's a lot that's going on around building the brand. The next bullet is what I've already spoken about. The concept of program sponsorships is where you drive disproportionate value for a show based on the viewership. When you can bring a brand in that wants to attach themselves as a title sponsor for programming, you get a lot more value out of that than what you get out of just the simple ratings or GRP of that show. That's always been a goal. That's something, again, that I give a lot of credit to the ad sales team and Simran for getting for us at this point. And that's a big priority for us to continue that as we move forward. And we're developing programs right now that we look and design to be able to do that. The third bullet is the new channel business. We're not resting on our laurels and only hoping that the increase in revenues and driving the value of the Q Media Hindi language channel is all we're going to rest on. We've always spoken about, I've been talking about this for over a year, the goal here is to build Q Media Networks group in India, not just the Q channel. We're not a one channel deal. And so I can't talk about the details. India is a very, very competitive market, as you guys are probably aware. And so it wouldn't be good for us or any of you if I was to talk about the specifics of what we're planning on launching in Q1. But it's a channel that leverages the infrastructure, the people, everything that we've got right now. We will have to add some more to deal with this, but it's the next step in what we're doing. And expect to see more channels get announced soon, and that we're going to continue to build this out and drive added revenue that leverages the team that we have in India right now. When we looked at some of those numbers from a year ago, I don't know the exact number, we might have had a dozen or maybe as many as 15 people working for us in India. We've now got 75 people between Q Channels Group and Chatterbox. So we have a lot of power behind what we're trying to do there to build this into being a much, much larger business. Which, let's talk about Chatterbox. As I mentioned, 360-degree dream is what we're all about at the end of the day. That's being able to have television channels that are showing ads there, to be able to create unique shoulder programming and content that sits against that on OTT and mobile and digital platforms, and being able to drive that all the way down to the individual influencers themselves who are promoting Dettol or Lifebuoy or whatever the product is. This is a new concept. This isn't something that even is happening in a huge way in the United States. You're starting to see this take place a little bit. This is where we see a huge and unique opportunity for us, and this is where we see that even driving further into the revenue growth of the company. Finally, I talked about Bharat Box and what's happening in Tier 2 and Tier 3. Again, we just announced these things. These are brand new. We're out jointly pitching agencies and brands as we speak, and we expect some of those first campaigns to kick in the quarter that starts tomorrow. And finally, QYOU. Key to that is that we've created new clients. The movies hopefully are going to come back. God willing, COVID's going to hold itself down, we hope. And as the movie theaters open, all those clients that we have that are producing movies and putting them into theaters, we still have. But we've added on top of that subscription video on demand or SVOD clients like Netflix and Peacock. We've added on premium VOD, companies that are releasing or studios that are releasing titles directly into their platforms like HBO Max, day and date with the theatrical release. Well, that's a huge opportunity for us. In addition, we've got the gaming industry now that's starting to come for us. Again, I can't give details about things. I've talked about Resident Evil, but you can assume that the gaming industry, which is very closely aligned with the theatrical movie business, is a business that we're going to be driving the QYOU business into. The thing that's happening for that business as well is we're getting inbound requests for proposals now. The reputation of the company has grown to the point among the studios where the My Little Pony business, as example, happened because they heard about us and the work that they did. That was an inbound job for us, and it's one of the largest jobs that we've ever done. So there's a lot of excitement about all three businesses, but we've got our heads down. We're not going to get distracted, and we're going to make sure that all three of these businesses continue to grow and continue to build what we want. The next thing is digital. We barely scraped the surface on monetization of digital. Part of that is because India is still forming in terms of the digital revenues that are being driven there. And so we have a whole series of tactics and strategies that we've developed, some of which have already begun, for how we're going to grow our digital revenue, a bit in Q4 and a lot in 2022. Krishna Menon is heading that group. He's got a lot of pressure on him from me because this is an incredibly important part of our business. In order, we've already announced that we're on Samsung TV Plus and Fire Stick. Some of you may or may not know about a category. You can Google it later, that's known as FAST channels. FAST stands for free ad-supported television. Okay, this is sprouted up. You probably all know a company called Roku. All the channels they offer would be called FAST channels. Some of you may be familiar here in the US with a couple of companies. One is called Tubi TV, T-U-B-I. Another one is called Pluto TV. These are companies that were bought and probably sold, arguably too early, at valuations of $350 million and $500 million respectively, that are in this FAST category. Pluto, which sold for $350 million, I guess probably about 2 years ago now, just announced, they're owned by Viacom, they're going to do $1 billion in ad revenue this year in 2021. That's how, no pun intended, the FAST channel business is growing. And we believe that this is going to be a major growth category for us in India going forward. As Indians start to get more and more connected TVs, as Indians start to get more and more fiber to the home and broadband connectivity, you will see this business explode there, just like it has happened, just like what has happened in the US. Why is that? It's because the content is free and we're a free channel. Okay, so keep an eye on what you're going to see coming from us in the FAST area. This is a huge area of growth for us on a go-forward basis. Snap. We have over 775,000 subscribers on our 4 channels that are our owned and operated channels on Snap right now. It's incredible. And the reality is we're starting to drive revenue from Snap. It's starting to happen. We're starting to see monetization of that. We've got a very, very good relationship with Snap. We're going to be doing more with Snap. If any of you are Snap investors or follow Snap, you may or may not remember that they kind of poo-pooed India when they first came out and got a lot of criticism for that over lack of smartphones in India. They've changed their tune dramatically. And Snap now, I think, has a $125 billion valuation. And if you read any of their reports or look at what they're saying, India is a key area that they talk about, and they're probably, other than maybe the US, the biggest growth territory for them in terms of what's happening around Snap. You're going to see a lot of stuff happening for us there. Chingari, I talked about 49,000 entries and 1 billion views of the contest that we did there. That generated 0 revenue. Why is that? Chingari's not doing the revenue thing. They're following the YouTube. We've all forgotten now that YouTube used to not have ads. Facebook used to not have ads. Twitter used to not have ads. Everybody back then talked about how are these companies going to monetize. Not necessarily the wrong move on the part of Chingari. They're driving usage, they're driving adoption, they're driving downloads, et cetera right now. So there's no revenue that came from that. Well, that will change going forward. When you look at those kind of numbers of engagement, you see what the opportunity is. MX Player, we talked about the fact that MX Player, I didn't mention, is owned by Times of India Group. There's a lot more that's going to happen there, and you'll see things. They're one of the largest digital OTT players in India, so expect to see more there. Geotv and GeoFiber, our largest single partner in terms of distribution. Monetization next to zero. That's for everyone on that platform. Geo's doing the same thing as what Chingari is doing. That's going to change. Everybody's looking to move that forward. Over the next 10 years, all of these areas that I'm talking about, these will ultimately end up dwarfing the revenue in all likelihood that we're driving from the traditional television business. Airtel Extreme is another one that we've been working with for a while, and we look to roll out more there. So the digital area, small, marginal contributor this quarter that we just announced, certainly next quarter in Q4 about the same, huge priority in 2022. Watch for the announcements that we're going to be making about what we do in this space, because they will be very, very important in terms of the growth of the company. Finally, social commerce. I've talked about this a lot. I can't go into a huge amount of detail about this because we're not talking about yet what we're doing. What I will say about social commerce is that we believe that we are incredibly and uniquely positioned to play in this space. As I just mentioned this morning, Meesho, I have $2 billion valuation here because this slide was done yesterday. $4.9 billion valuation, $570 million raised that they announced this morning. This is how fast this area is growing. We're not going to get left in the dust in this, trust me. Some of the people have asked me, where are you? Why aren't you doing something? We want to make sure we do something that's right. We want to make sure it's something that works. We want to make sure it's something that's sustainable. With that said, we're going to be dipping our toe in the water in a lot of different ways in terms of what's happening there. We basically have a social commerce task force inside the company where Pranay and Julie from Chatterbox and Krishna are leading that with Jace and myself. You'll see that what we're going to do is a lot of things around gamified, rewards-based, incentivized areas. If any of you listen to Jace on his podcast or other things, trust me, the area of blockchain and crypto and token-based sort of models is something that we're certainly looking at, and that you can see that. The bottom line is a transactional content future is ahead of us. We believe that our unique position of having our channel, which we call our loudspeaker, and that's one channel, ultimately will be channels that we can use to leverage to get the word out about what we're doing, and having Chatterbox as a core influencer marketing company with the huge database and number of relationships they have, combined with the brands that are on that list of the biggest brands in India and in the world that we're working with. This is an area that you will see us growing, and you'll see announcements that will be forthcoming over the next 6 to 9 months to show you the path of how this is going to change things. And finally, I thought that was the final slide. Finally, M&A. I get asked about this a lot as well. The Chatterbox acquisition, as I said, and it says here, it was 1 + 1 = 11. It wasn't just about their business. It was also about the people. I mean, every business in the world, ultimately, at the end of the day, is driven by not just having a great idea or being in the right place at the right time. It's about the people. And Pranay and Julie have assembled an amazing group of super talented and super aggressive young people. Many of them are influencers themselves that are driving this business. That's why we say 1 + 1 = 11 in terms of that acquisition. You can rest assured that we are constantly on the lookout for acquisitions where we can find things that fit, that are accretive to our business, and we can do that. That's not to say that we won't continue to drive the growth organically that we've spoken about. But as many of you know, I have a long history with Lionsgate. Scott Patterson has a long history with Lionsgate. Lionsgate is a great example of a company that grew through the growth of their organic business units, but also grew massively through acquisition. We expect to do exactly the same thing, and it's about the people in the companies that we're looking about. It's about the forward thinking that they're doing, and it's about the technology that they bring to us too, because we've always got one foot in what's the new ways to do things and do that. So look, 2021, there's no other way to describe it than it was our breakout year. You know, my joke here is always we'll be an overnight success in 10 years. Well, we've been driving and building this in India for 3 years now in terms of a Hindi language channel, and nothing happens as fast as we want it to, but the Q India brand is established there now, and it's something that you can see by the size of the audience we're commanding. Something that you can see by the advertisers who are coming up with us, and we're just, you know, we could not be more pumped about where we sit right now as a company in our position in India. Finally, you know, a unicorn is being crowned every other week. It's amazing if you follow the India marketplace. There are billion-dollar or multi-billion-dollar companies that are sprouting up there. I've talked about, you know, what we call the loudspeaker, our Chatterbox group, and our influencers, what we call the ground speaker. We have a unique position in that structure in our business. I cannot overemphasize that. And so the ability to have this broadcast loudspeaker with an on-the-ground influencer-baked business model and business company is where we expect to see tremendous growth. These are the macro themes that I talked about at the very beginning, and this is where the fact that they combine into this area of social commerce that's tested, that Misho, thank you Misho, gave me credibility on talking about how fast and how big that is. Go back and look at them. 6 months ago, $2 billion valuation, maybe not even 6 months ago. 6 months or less later, $4.9 billion valuation. We're in the middle of that kind of trajectory in terms of what we're doing there. It's not just Kurt thinking this. It's not Scott Patterson. It's not we're a bunch of crazy people. The most sophisticated and smartest companies in the world are all pouring billions of dollars into India. You know, this is not something that we're like India, let's go, you know, colonize Jupiter. This is a country that I strongly, strongly believe over the next 2 decades will see the kind of impact and growth in the financial world, in terms of the cultural world, et cetera, that we've seen come out of China. We all know about all the problems that we've seen in China over even just the last several months in terms of more government controls and other things that are happening there. India is much more westernized. The English is the language that's used there for business. And we're just, you know, you just see these companies, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Netflix, Walmart, Disney, all of them pouring billions of dollars into the country. You just saw the merger between Z and Sony happen a couple of weeks ago. We are in the right place at the right time. Finally, you know, our corporate motto, which most of you don't probably know, that was dreamed up by the people on this page. When Jason and I were over in India about 2 months ago, we wanted to talk about who we were as a company, not our mission statement, but what our motto was. And we came up with stay curious, be fearless. The bottom line is that, you know, I look, if I'm proud of anything about myself as a person, it's that I'm a learner. I love to learn new things. I mean, it's what drives me every day, and it's what drives my life. I love to learn new things. And I also will make an argument that I'm fearless. You know, I'll try stuff. I'll take a chance. Scott Patterson is exactly the same way. It's why we've become such close personal friends and why we're so excited about what's happening. Everybody you see on this page comes from exactly that same mentality. Everybody in here on this company that's leading this company is a learner. They're looking to grow and find out new things, and we're looking to be fearless and try new things. That ultimately is what's going to take us to valuations that we'll look back one day and laugh at where we were today based on the news that we came out from our revenue trajectory. We could not be more excited about the opportunity. We think it's reflected in our results now. You'll continue to see results like that on a go-forward basis. And, you know, the biggest thing is thank you all very much for supporting us, for being excited about this journey that we're on, and for being shareholders who know that there's big times ahead for all of us. So with that, I'm going to stop my share. I'm going to open up my chat, and I'm going to go to the top of it here. And I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I can. Q planning a buyback option, share dilution. I can't really go into details about that. What I will say is this. We're always looking at ways to create more value. That's part of our DNA as well. Keep in mind, we're all shareholders too. So, who haven't sold a share, by the way. So we're all, we're all in the same boat with you guys. And we're exploring a lot of different opportunities right now. I'm not going to make any comments or announcements on any specifics around that, but you can assume that as a company, we believe that our story can resonate in markets obviously beyond the Canadian market, the OTC, et cetera. So you can assume that we're looking at a lot of different potential opportunities that can bring us more value overall in terms of our shareholder base, and also more value for new shareholders and new territories and places to see our story and follow it. Again, this is just, people ask me all the time, what inning are we in? And I probably started that thing ourselves. I jokingly said, I think we might be playing a double header now because this is going to go for a while. But we're, if you ask me that, we're in the third inning. If you want to use baseball vernacular, we're still in the early part of this game. And I think 2020 fourth quarter, you're going to see a lot of stuff happen for us, and 2022 is where you'll really see a lot of that begin to fundamentally materialize in terms of both financial gain and an impact. Any thoughts on reverse splits? I kind of spoke to that. I'd like to know if an acquisition, that further dilution. Look, every company that we look at, that we evaluate, is evaluated based upon different metrics. We think that the Chatterbox acquisition was very fair for the Chatterbox ownership and management, and for us. There's an EBITDA multiple that bases the continued purchase price of that based upon them making money. And so we look for them to be motivated to do that. We look for that to be beneficial to everyone. So look, we're not desperate in any way, shape, or form right now, so we don't have to do a bad deal. We're only going to do things that we think leverage where we sit as a company right now, and where we believe that it's an accretive acquisition. And again, both Scott and I spent a lot of time around Lionsgate and learned a hell of a lot from their management, and John Feldheimer and Michael Burns, two of the smartest guys on the planet Earth in that regard, driving that sort of attitude. So we look to follow that. Is Q cash positive? No, we're not cash positive. We're getting close. What I will tell you is that on an operating basis, we could be cash positive, probably plus or minus, not anything material, in the month of October. We're not doing that because we're investing back into the company. So a lot of the conversations that we have internally right now is, how much are we going to invest in growing new content? How much are we going to invest in rolling out our social commerce plans? How much are we going to invest in new channel launches? When you launch a new channel, it doesn't become profitable the first day that it comes out. You probably can understand and recognize that. So these are areas where the company needs to take that capital. I mean, when you raise money, certainly at interest rates at banks today, we're not going to use that money to put it in the bank and gain interest. We think there's much better ways for that use of capital. So on an operating basis, we're very, very, very close. On an investment basis into the growth of the company, we plan on continuing to do that. COVID situation in India. It's loosening up a bit. Actually, the overall, interestingly, a reflection of all of that is the overall ratings of Hindi general entertainment channels. Well, not Hindi general entertainment, television. The overall ratings of television have dropped in terms of the amount of viewership over the last month. Why is that? It's because people aren't at home as much. People are getting out. The Diwali season, which is their holiday season, sort of the analog to our Christmas, really what they call the festival season has really just started. That's the reason we've got a lot of advertisers jumping on board for the month of October, and things like Ashram are attracting title sponsors because there's a tremendous amount of advertising and commerce that takes place during Diwali. And so, I'm not going to say COVID's not an issue there. Everybody's concerned about COVID all over the world. But India is opening up right now, and we'll sort of see what happens on a go-forward basis. There is a huge amount of the population that's been vaccinated, so hopefully that will help that continue. Are there more requests for ad placements you can deal with? The shorter answer to that is that yes, currently we have more demand than we have inventory for. Obviously, as you can imagine, there's a finite number of ads you can run per hour, and there's 24 hours a day, so you can do the math and figure that out. What that does is that helps us drive up the price per ad. So part of that is what I was talking about, is that, you know, I've talked a lot about GRP equals revenue, and there's no doubt about that. But then as you become more sophisticated, as we are now as a company and as a channel and playing with the big boys, it's also about the content and the relative value of how much ad value you run against that rating point. And so a lot of what we're doing right now is looking at how to adjust revenue growth against that GRP growth and make those two things work together. One of those areas that you can do that is add more ads. Well, when you add more ads, you tend to have your GRP drop, because as you add more ads, the most common time for people to change the channel is when an ad comes up. I'm sure you all realize that. So this is something that we're constantly experimenting with. This is something that we've got a team from Simran and everybody else, and Sundar and Krishna, that have all been in this business for a long time. But that's part of the experimentation that we go through. The ultimate goal is to continue driving the revenue of the channel. That's ultimately what's the most important. You said, what's more important, GRP or revenue? Obviously, it's revenue. We've done that extremely well in Q3. We expect to continue to do that extremely well in Q4 and beyond. But that's part of the ad placement game that you play. There's another question about the exchange. Again, we're looking and evaluating a lot of different possibilities, I'll call them, about where we can continue to build our listing visibility and how that will work. Again, nothing specific to announce on that front, but we're all looking at that. Question about our earnings. I'm trying to get through these as quickly as I can, because we have 4 more minutes. Question about our earnings. Our year-end earnings, I may be off a day or two. It's before the end of October. I think it's going to be published on October 28th. Don't hold me exactly to that date. I might be off a day or two. But the bottom line is it'll be at the end of October. That's for the full fiscal year. I get a lot of questions about this, and it drives us crazy. Our actual fiscal year for the company is June 30, and our fiscal year for India and Chatterbox is March 31st. And I like to talk in calendar terms. We're actually considering about changing our fiscal year right now. I find it to be provides too much brain damage for me and for all of you as investors to talk about that. That's why you'll see a release where I'm talking about fiscal this, calendar that. I like to think in calendar years. We're also considering if we're going to make a change in our fiscal year, because there's stuff obviously involved in that. But the bottom line is that now I forgot what the question was, is that we'll be reporting at the end of October for the fiscal year that ended June 30, 2021. That report will reflect 3 quarters of, I'll call it the old Q. Only 1 quarter, which will be the Q2, that was the $2.6 million quarter of real revenue. We did more revenue in that quarter than we did in the previous 3 quarters combined. The fiscal 2022 year began July 1st, so this 4.7 million revenue number is for that, and obviously we're doing more revenue in 1 quarter, significantly more revenue than we did in all of last year. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, look, the stock price. Look, the small cap market in general, I'm not making excuses for it, has been somewhat stagnant. We believe we've got to just prove that what we're doing is happening. I believe strongly that we're undervalued still right now in a significant way. I think we should be 50 cents plus right now based on what we're delivering in terms of our numbers. I think as we continue to drive those numbers, hopefully give more guidance along the way in Q4, et cetera, we'll continue to see that trajectory grow. And we also, again, are looking at doing things that are just, you know, in terms of our organic growth that we'll be announcing that will drive that as well. QYOU spend on advertising the platforms. We'll spend roughly in this fiscal year on the channels, roughly plus or minus about $2 million on ad campaigns and marketing for the channels. We may ratchet that up a bit. We're not certain about that because, again, a lot of these things are kind of moving targets. I'm going to close up now. I know it's 9 o'clock. I know there's more questions. You know, I'll continue to do these things. Most of you can, if you in the investor on the website, you can go into the investor area and I believe go there and send questions, which I do see if you have more. I'll try to do these a bit more often. I'll try to spend a bit more time on the Telegram chat area. It's tough. I mean, believe me, these things are not happening magically or without us working. We have a team of people that I can tell you are working to build this company to a successful a place that's beyond all of our expectations 24/7. You know, there is no rest right now. And so, as I said earlier, you know, we are charging right now and firing on all cylinders, and there's nothing that doesn't have us continue to expect that that's going to continue in a major way on a go-forward basis. So I appreciate so much all of you taking time out of your day to listen to this. We will get it posted up onto the website. And most of all, I appreciate you guys supporting us and being part of the Q story. I think, you know, we're big believers that this story is going to keep getting better and better and better as the quarters and years move forward. So thanks so much for sticking with us, and hope to see you all again soon.